and get out your eraser. That's what you need to do for the middle ground. You're going to prune it back. This is quite complex. There's a lot of detail in here. I think the best way to start your middle ground is to capture the main events that you know belong in the background for the phrase. That's the descent, the fundamental line, and the Bassbrechung, or the bass arpeggiation. We've represented those notes with half notes, so you can just see the G, the D, and the G. And remember, in Schenker's thought, these notes, they're not just notes, but they're Stufe, they're scale steps. They're actually chords. So that G represents the whole triad, G major, and this D represents the dominant harmony. Okay, so let's capture those things first. I'm going to leave plenty of room. I'm going to throw out my bar lines, and I'll start on this D, and leaving plenty of room, I'll jump to the end and show how we get closure. Okay, so this is going to all head down here, beam them, and harmonically, the key elements are 1, 5, and 1. Okay, now that's background stuff. The middle ground takes that material and shows how it starts to get elaborated. It's kind of an intermediate step from the stuff we've written here and the foreground material. So we want to look and say, I see that I've got a note here, but I have nothing to support it. That's got to be part of my middle ground. I've got to show how the notes of the fundamental line are supported. We can see that here. These two notes really belong together, the E and the bass and the C. So let's put those together here. I'll add the E and show its relationship. It's true, I could use a quarter note and it would still be obviously less structurally important than my D, but we're used to using the eighth note for an incomplete neighbor, and that's why I'm doing that here. Okay, so far so good. Now I want to give some sense of how this opening tonic is stretched out for such a long time. So let's take a look at the foreground sketch once again and to see how that happens. The first stage in this process was the double neighbor pattern. And remember, this part up here we're viewing as a covering tone. It's something that should have been in an inner voice if everything were neat and tidy, but it's been thrown up above the main line and obscures it in a way, covers it. So let's take some of this. Maybe I'll go to here and show that these two notes decorate that, and that at the same time we have this going on. There. Okay. We also might want to just clarify that this and this happen. So I'm taking this F sharp, copying it here, and I'm taking this A, which happened up there above the F sharp, and I'm still putting it above the F sharp, but I've moved it down here so that it's obviously below this C. Alright, and then I can show the voice exchange there. Now these are inner voice things. With that level of detail, I might want to actually put some stems on here. Like this, just to clarify that those are the notes that all belong to the main line. You might even want to try and decide, okay, well, which of these notes is the main note, the A or the F sharp, and so it might be worth doing something like this too. I'm sort of reticent to do that, though. I like to think of the pairs working together around that G, but that's a possibility. Alright, so shown some notes to be inner voice entities. Now we can, yeah, you see it really is kind of nice to see that the double neighbor pattern is existing on a couple levels. Here's one in a couple lines, this one here and then another one over there. So let's give this some there. Now I know I've added that. That's all to bring a resolution. Now notice that just like I moved the A down, I can view this G as having been moved down. See on the original, our foreground sketch, the A I moved down to be an inner voice to this C sharp. Now I can move this G down to be an inner voice to this B. So I like that. So really those parentheses aren't even necessary. I'm taking both of those notes from an octave higher and bringing them down into an inner voice where I'm asserting they would have best belonged in the first place. Okay, now that's the first stage. We've got passing motion, we've got neighboring motion here, and now I want to show this next bit of tonic expansion, which is through these incomplete neighbors. Let me add that on. So we get E here going to D and C going to B. All right. Let's show it this way. I'm going to relate everything back to the opening. This matches the way we did it at first. See that dashed line? That dash slur is showing up here now. Slurs show relationship there. Okay, and we'll do the same thing here. I'm tempted to do this all the way over to here to make it match that line. Why not go like so? Now this one can't be dashed because it's a new note. It's not as if I've retained anything. That's what the dash slur means. Okay, and now we can bring a little more clarity to this. We can eliminate the local detail and show the passing motion. B, A, G as passing. And up in the topmost part, we just have D sustained above it. Okay, so now we have a much simpler diagram. Still got quite a bit of detail, but it's clarified a few things. By having this middle ground level, this intermediate step between the fundamental structure and the surface level detail, we're able to clarify the meaning of this A, which was quite prominent, and this G also prominent, and show how those are really in a supporting role to the main events of the upper part. It's faint downward motion into an inner voice here, and it's being regained here by this incomplete neighbor motion back to the D, and then the descent. So you get an overview, a simplified version of what kind of motion is taking place in here, and it also allows us to clarify the relationships between some things that were perhaps a bit of a mystery at the beginning. Notice too that this other play with registers here is completely eliminated. We've just shown the direct path down and eliminate all that scalar passage work between the two D's and the two C's. Now it just shows up as a clean descent once we're done with these early parts of our tonic expansion. We really don't even need to do this. It's clear from our diagram, but what we're really showing is a first stage of elaboration of the fundamental structure.